Okay, so finally Victoria has now opened for applications for the 190 and 491 visa. You can apply for the 190 visa if you're living in Victoria or if you're living overseas. Interstate applicants cannot apply. For the 491 visa, you must be living in regional Victoria to apply. The requirements are very similar to last year. A valid skills assessment and an eligible. And they also will still be assessing the annual salary. So if you have superior English, an occupation that's in demand, and high salary, you have a high likelihood of being selected. You don't need to be working in your nominated occupation. If you're applying for the 190 visa, you don't need to be working in your nominated occupation to be eligible, but you can claim your salary if you're working in a skill level 1, 2, or 3 job. And as they are still considering salary, this will increase your chances of being invited. More information to come. Stay tuned. Okay, so finally, as you guys know, Victoria just released their requirements for this financial year and now they are open for application. So let's do a deep dive into the requirements. In this video, we'll focus on the 190 visa and the next video, I'll focus on the 491. It's important to note that if you lodge a registration of interest last financial year and you were not selected and nothing has changed, you don't need to submit a new registration of interest. So it looks like they're going to start selecting ROIs as of September 2023. They're going to look at a person's age. So for example, 25 to 32 is going to be the best age. English language level, they have previously mentioned that they prefer superior English. If you have work experience in your nominated occupation, I think you're going to be prioritized. They're going to look at the partner skill if it's applicable, and for onshore candidates, they are going to consider those with a higher salary. This actually played a big factor last year. They have the industry sectors here, so health, social services, IT, early childhood, and the others here. If you're working in hospitality tourism, you're going to be prioritized for 491 visa. So I think if you have an occupation in that industry, it's better off you apply for the 491. If you're claiming a salary, you need to provide all the information to support that, and you need to have at least 4 weeks of pay slips. Looks like this year they'll also consider independent contractors. So that's very interesting. That's definitely something I'll talk more about. If you're applying for 190 as an offshore candidate, you just need to have a valid skills assessment and be committed to living in Victoria. We'll talk about the 491 in my next video. So Victoria opened up yesterday for applications for the 491 visa. You can now submit your registration of interest, but let's have a look at some of the requirements. There is some slight updates here, more so than the 190. You submitted a registration of interest last financial year. You must submit a new registration of interest this financial year. You must have a valid skills assessment in an eligible occupation, be under 45 years of age, and score at least competent English. If you're living onshore in Australia, you must be living and working in regional Victoria. You also must be working in a skill level 1, 2, or 3 job. For example, if you have a skills assessment as an accountant, but you're working and living in regional Victoria as a chef, then you would qualify. And I think if that was your profile, there's a high likelihood that you'll be invited, because as you can see here, hospitality and tourism is prioritized for the 491 visa. You can still apply if you're an offshore candidate if you're living outside of Australia. You just need to have an eligible skills assessment. But for offshore candidates, they're prioritizing applicants with skills in healthcare, social services, and education. If you are an interstate applicant, so for example, you're living in New South Wales, you can't apply unless you live in a border community. So you can find that information here. Live in regional Victoria if you live in a border community. So for example, Albury would classify as that. What is DAMA? D-A-M-A. Well, it's a formal agreement between the Department of Home Affairs and the state government. It allows employers within that region to sponsor overseas skilled workers. The difference is that there is concessions in place. So for example, in South Australia, you can sponsor occupations that are not normally on the skilled occupation list, like aged and disabled carer. And there's even concessions for the work experience requirement and the English requirement. So for example, if you have an employer in South Australia who wants to sponsor you as a carer, you just need to have a relevant qualification, which is a certificate 3 or higher. If it's for the 482 visa, you only need 1 year of work experience within the last 3 years for at least 20 hours per week, and you only need 4.5 in each band for English. In some regions, even the occupation of like truck driver is available.